The Security Collective acknowledges the traditional owners of the land on which we have recorded this podcast and pay our respects to their elders past and present. The Security Collective podcast is recorded and shared with you in partnership with LastPass, the leading password manager. LastPass enables companies of every size with the tools necessary to secure and centralise control of employee passwords and apps. You can learn more about LastPass at lastpass.com. Hello and welcome to the Security Collective podcast. I'm Claire Pales and today's guest is Naveen Chilamkurti. Naveen is currently the Associate Dean of International Partnerships, the SCEMS Professor and Head of Cybersecurity Discipline at Trobe University. Naveen has also been the Director of International Programs since 2017. He served as the technical editor for the highly ranked IEEE Wireless Communications magazine and the IEEE Transactions on Vehicular Technology. And in 2012 and again in 2018, Naveen was awarded a research fellowship. Naveen and I covered some of the great work La Trobe is doing to welcome people into the cyber industry through great micro-credentialing programs. We discussed what micro-credentials are, the value of this way of study, and how employers are valuing university qualifications such as micro-credentials. He also shared what academia are currently working on, including crypto and 6G. I'm really pleased to share with you my chat with Naveen Chilamkurti. So Naveen, thank you so much for joining us on the Security Collective podcast today.
Thank you.
So our audience has heard a little bit about you in your bio that you head up cyber at La Trobe, and there's a great new micro-credential program for cyber at La Trobe now. Can you explain a little bit about what a micro-credential is and how this program came about?
Sure. Let's go back to, let's say, 5 years ago. See, all the courses generally are at least a year and 2 years. But generation has changed. Everything is faster these days. Internet has given a lot of resources. People are thinking, a lot more people are actually thinking, changing their career directions, going into different fields, basically. And cyber is one of them where a lot of people wants to know about this. But unfortunately, they can't afford a long time, basically sitting there in the classes and doing all the assessments. It's a long way to go. 2 years is really a long way for them. Even if it is a part-time, it takes 4 years. So here, micro-credentials are nothing but the same subjects we use in this master's or bachelor courses are divided into two. Basically each one is called one micro-credential. And the good thing about them is basically it's like a stepping stone. You do the first one and go to the second one, combine these together, it'll become like a one subject. And these are called stackable credits. So if you do 2 credits of one subject, you'll actually didn't finish one subject basically. And if you pile up like that, about 8 micro-credentials, could be long, but you can do it on your own time. Take it 6 months or 8 months, you can do it. All the resources are available online, which means you can at least get a certificate in cybersecurity.
I guess the idea is that if you do a couple and you really like it, then you can do more, and then in a short time you would have a qualification.
Exactly. And the good thing is, as I said, they're all stackable. So take one by one. There are a lot of options you can take. There are a lot of specializations you can go into. So there's a lot of pathways you can go once you do some micro-credentials.
And are you seeing any particular subjects that are more popular than others in terms of the micro-credential subject completion?
Absolutely. There is one subject, every student wants to take it. Basically, not only cybersecurity student, actually, we get students from humanities, business, law, and so on and so forth. The subject is called Inside the Mind of a Hacker. Very long subject, a very long title, and a lot of people ask, what is this subject about? So basically, the outline is, in cybersecurity, there are a lot of old saying that you need to know who the enemy is to win the war. War in the sense the cyber war. And here, in this subject, we'll tell you who are these hackers, what type of hackers are they, and hackers come in different size and shape and age. So how to deal with them? There are different ways to attack. There are different psychologies behind them. There are different reasons to attack. So what we're trying to do is to estimate what are this type of attacks, who is this hacker coming into this system, what is their motive, behind this attack and then try to defend them.
I'm not surprised that that is the most popular subject. And you mentioned that people are coming from all across the university from different faculties to do this particular subject. Are these courses or these micro-credentials, are they good for people who are coming from a low tech or cyber literacy?
Absolutely. While designing these courses, the back of our mind, basically that's the main reason. We want to attract people who are actually not from IT background or not from technical background. That's where we found the foundation is basically absolutely no prerequisite required, means no knowledge, even networking knowledge, nothing. I mean, as I said, people come from arts, science, business, where they don't know anything about internet. Of course, they can use applications, they can use web, they can browse everything, but they don't know anything about how it works. So we start with this subject is completely non-technical. That's what a lot of people ask us, where is the technical part? This subject has no technical part. It's all about psychology of the hacker. And really, it'll tell you the backgrounds of this sort of cyber attacks. See why people attack others. Why, or what is the reason? What is the motivation and things like that. So absolutely no technical background required.
So I can understand some people doing this subject or a couple of subjects out of maybe curiosity, but people hiring, are they recognising these smaller micro-credentials during the hiring process? Or are you seeing people doing these courses just because they're curious, or are they actually doing it so they can leverage these credentials when they're applying for cyber-related roles?
Initially, you're right. Initially, they are a bit curious, saying, what is this cyber? What is this all things going around the world? What are these attacks and things like that? There are subjects specifically introduce the cybersecurity fundamentals. As I said before, the inside the mind of a hacker. So people start with curiosity, like saying, let's see what, hardly 4 weeks they can, do this micro credentials. What this happens is these are the laying foundation for this big cyber subjects. So once they do this foundation subjects, they want to go inside the cyber. That's why they choose the 3 different pathways they can go in. They can go in the technical pathway if their really background is a technical background. They can go in business organization, risk management, if they are in the sort of business background. They can also do AI, artificial intelligence in there. So what I'm saying is they start with curiosity, but they generally do a little bit more further, and they try at least to get some certification or diploma, or some end up with the masters.
Which I guess is helpful for organisations who might hire someone who's maybe done their certificate, and then if they continue to go on with their studies and get deeper into the content in any one of those chosen paths, then they become even more of an asset to the organisation.
See, industry actually looks for the skills, not just for a particular, particular set of skills. So having some cyber background, having done some sort of introduction to the cyber will definitely help for your position. That's where I'm coming in the next questions you may ask me, what are the skills required for cyber, or who the employers prefer. They look for something like a broader skills, and cyber is one of the part of that skills spectrum.
Do you think organisations are equipped to face the cyber threats that are on the horizon? Have they got the right people in the organisation? Have they got the right approach?
Look, we are doing our best, and even the business are really doing well. But there is no fixed goalpost. All the attacks will happen, and hackers are really becoming sophisticated. There are a lot of tools available. So what they can do is they can really do things like mitigating the threat. Means there are known attacks already, and quickly catch up with the particular attack, how they can protect from this attack, and doing a lot of updates. See, this is really important. Industry has to do updates, because most of the industries use some standard operating system like Microsoft or any other standard operating system, and they may find some bugs in that particular one. So whenever there is a update worldwide, they need to do the real quick update, make sure their systems are up to date, make sure their employees and everyone knows how attacks can happen.
I think we have seen maybe in the last 2 or 3 weeks, the Australian Cybersecurity Centre put out a piece about the fact that we're still seeing issues now, or viruses or malicious software now, that we've been seeing for a decade. And, your point around making sure you're patched and making sure you're up to date, it just seems that some organisations are still not getting to that baseline of even patching and keeping up with what the software companies are pushing out to help organisations protect themselves and be proactive.
Yeah. Look, I'll tell you an example without naming them. I think it's one country where a very big ransomware attack, where simply they didn't update the system, and the hacker, it's a well-known bug, basically we call bug, it's a loophole. Everyone knows this loophole. A hacker actually exploited this bug, went into the system, locked all the files, medical files, and the whole system has been locked for 3 days, and they had to pay the ransom the hacker is asking. So it's a very simple, probably it'll take a couple of days for them to update, stage by stage, but unfortunately they didn't. And eventually they had to stop whole system for 3 days. Small things can, explode basically. And not only this, that's 5 years ago. I'm talking about 2017. And recent one, there is a big oil critical infrastructure attacked. Again, very simple things they could have done. See, the population, now using internet a lot more than we used 10 years ago. And everything is connected now. So it's a small thing will cause a rippling effect around the world, not just in Australia, not just, other countries, around the world. So I agree. I think people has to be aware of, things going on. And one point I want to really make it clear is cyber is not something one person will, if there is a cyber person in your, industry, it's not his job. It's everyone's duties basically. So make sure that you have cyber awareness, your virus is on up to date, your computer is not, acting very funny, because that's how you detect there is a virus. So anything you detect early is really beneficial.
Yes, it's instilling that healthy paranoia into the employees in an organisation, just to be looking out for something that might look suspicious as well. So you've mentioned patching, but where do you think organisations should be focusing their investment and resources in relation to cyber? Where do you see this risk going, and how can they be proactively investing now?
So a very good question, because we are doing a lot of work with business. As you know, we have a government funding to upskill. Basically, we call upskill, where employees actually, we assume no background again for this one. We train them, as you said, cyber hygiene, very simple things, how to detect something, how actually you had to report. That's very important. See, reporting is maybe not very clear in your particular organization, but it is helpful for the whole community, because when you report something, you can actually, others can be alerted, and that's where things can happen. Coming to the business, what they can do is they had to make sure there is a clear communication line, especially with cyber, from the top, executives to the frontline team. See, this is where they lack that community sort of communication. See, the cyber person will be telling something, and the senior executives, because of their budgeting or some sort of different focusing, or maybe complex, organization, sometimes they may not listen to this sort of as a high priority. They're not putting the cyber as a high priority. Upgrading equipment, upskilling the workforce. I think really very important that the executives, actually the top line people, has to involve with cyber, and they had to make sure they are listening to the people who are in the front line, and then there's a clear communication between them. Upskilling is really important, and regular upskilling. It's not just do it once in 5 years, because cyber is a very dynamically, very fast moving, dynamic space.
Yeah, I think your point about education and really just getting the basics right. We should always be investing in that. And yes, there are new threats coming over the horizon all the time, but making sure that our staff know their role, our board knows their role in managing cybersecurity threats and managing cyber risk. investing in that all the time. And it's not always money or financial investment. Sometimes it's time and resources and helping the business. Just having those conversations about cybersecurity is the best investment you can make.
Correct. And also remember, the cyber risk management is a big thing, in any organization, and you had to update every time. See, this is not the tick the box exercise, because it's very dynamic risk. It's not something, for example, you have a car, the risk is very clear, but unfortunately, there's no defined risk management for cyber. It's changing every sort of often, months and months, because the threats can be from anywhere, human threats, technical threats, and now we are dealing with many devices. See, that's one thing I want to add is, it's not like everyone has a computer these days. Everyone has more than one computer these days, more than one device these days. So that adds the complexity. And instead of protecting one, you had to protect 5 devices per employee, because he will be remotely working, so he may take his laptop outside, so that need to be connected to the network of the business network, and how safe it is. There is some VPNs and other things, so there is a lot of complexity added, especially because of our remote working from the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point that a board or executive might think, well, we've given you several $1 million to invest in cyber. And then the security leader or the CIO might come back and say, well, as you said, now we need VPN, or now we need to put protections on mobile devices, or like it's this constant, the board probably feels like their hand is constantly in their pocket giving out money for this. But because of the evolving nature of the risk, and because organisations, some haven't spent a lot of money in the past, now they're really having to invest further and further. It's not just something that you have one project and you're done. It's sort of this constant stream of investment to make sure that you're always protected.
And just imagine, I mean, if you are in their shoes, their focus can be different. I mean, they're, for example, telling there is a coffee shop and a large chain, and they have computers, they have network, but their focus is on selling coffee and other things, not the IT or cybersecurity. So generally, they outsource their IT to a large organization or something. So this is where things will go wrong. Your organization, where it's not focused on IT, you're not an IT business, and you outsource your data, you collect data, the frequent fly cards or anything, that data will be sent it to a third party, and they had to make sure that this is actually, and unfortunately, sometimes these third parties are not trusting entities. So that's where things will go wrong.
I want to finish up asking you, given that you're at La Trobe, I'd really be interested to know what the academic community is focused on at the moment in terms of research into cyber, and maybe what new discoveries that you can talk about that are being focused on.
Sure. Look, we have a big team working on various cyber intelligence, cyber threats, anomaly detections, and so on and so forth. Actually, we are short in supply, I would say, is trust. Previously, I mean, as I said before, each person used to have a very good one computer, and it is named to your ID and things like that. Now, each person is having more than 5 or 6 devices. Trust is really hard. Who is actually using? Who is the owner of this particular asset? And things like that. It's becoming very complex because people are carrying so many devices. So a technology you must have heard, or people must have heard, called blockchain. Don't confuse with bitcoins. Bitcoins are one of the applications of blockchain, but not the other way around. And blockchain is a very big trusting mechanism. This mechanism can give you almost like 99% trusting, you can trust an entity or an asset using blockchain. It's a very big concept used in Bitcoin, basically. That is one of the area we are looking at. And don't forget, in coming years, we'll have Internet of Things will become very large. We're talking about billions of devices connected, and we have to secure them, because we call this attack surface. Attack surface means where is a possible way of attacking will increase 25 billion times. You just imagine the scale and magnitude of that. And every device, see, remember, in cyber, nothing is small, nothing is big. Everything has the same threat, small to large. That's why we had to make sure their threats are actually contained. Trust is, enabled using the blockchain. And last but not least, we are actually moving into different technology now. I'm not sure many people must have heard. We are in 5G networks now. 5G has its own enabled, but soon we'll be moving into 6G, where security is part and parcel of that network. And we'll see 100 times more faster internet, security, and things like that. And we are talking about the research communities about talking about 2030 and another 8 years. So we are working on in this area where we can integrate all these new technologies into one network called 6G network.
Wow. Well, I think the opportunity for La Trobe to do that research and the funding that you've received is so incredibly helpful, because we have to be thinking forward. As you said, if we're talking about 2030, it's going to be here before we know it. And I'm also very grateful for the micro-credentialing that we've talked about today, that allows many more people to start to get their head around cybersecurity and come at this from a very low technology or technical literacy and build that through their curiosity. So I think you're doing great work, and I really want to thank you for joining us on the podcast today and sharing some of your wisdom. Thanks, Naveen.
Thank you very much.
The Security Collective podcast is recorded and shared with you in partnership with LastPass, the leading password manager. LastPass enables companies of every size with the tools necessary to secure and centralise control of employee passwords and apps. You can learn more about LastPass at lastpass.com.